Good morning, church. Good morning. It's good to be with you. When I woke up and heard all the thundering and saw the lightning, I wondered how many people would be at church today. So I'm pleasantly surprised that you weathered the storm. But I want to begin here by...
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
I'd like
Yes, Pastor.
a young girl,
Okay.
12-year-old domestic worker, and I've got cash.
Okay, so you want a 12-year-old domestic worker. How much cash do you have?
$100.
That's a bit much. Let me give you some change,
I
and
like change.
we'll get you set up.
Thank
All
you.
right, best of luck to you. The tragic word is that the average price of a slave today is $90, and that a domestic worker is a front for human trafficking. I have some gummy bears here with me today, and I purposely got exactly the right weight. This is 7 pounds of gummy bears, and we actually have a case where a child was given as a bride in exchange for 7 pounds of candy. This is the world that we're living in today. I have a quiz for you, some questions that I would like you to listen to the answers for. And so here's the first quiz question. What is meant by a large millstone? Is that too heavy for a person to lift? Turned by a donkey, a stone made of granite, or used in strong man competitions? The next question here, who are Dalits? Who are Dalits? The broken and scattered, those seen as the lowest class, people given the worst jobs, or the untouchables? Our third question, what is the main way that traffickers trick young girls in developing countries? Is it telling them that they will be a model, giving them cash, offering a fake job in another country, or pretending to be a friend on social media? Final question. Where is Child Impact's secret project? Is it North Korea, Iraq, Ukraine, or you can find out this afternoon? There is more slavery today than at any time in Earth's history. I want you to finish this phrase for me. Out of sight? That's the issue that we deal with, because human trafficking is an underground crime that we simply do not see from day to day. But that does not take away from the reality that is faced by so many in the world today. 147 countries still have slavery today, with India topping the list with nearly 20 million slaves. That means 2 out of every 5 individuals enslaved is from the country of India. The United States has an estimate of over 1 million individuals that are enslaved. Human trafficking is the fastest growing and second largest criminal industry in the world.
And whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me.
If anyone calls one of these little ones, those who believe in me, to stumble,
it would be better for them to have a large millstone hung around their neck and to be drowned into the depths of the sea.
Now, we'll read the first part of that verse together in a moment, but let me share with you the context of this disturbing passage that I'm sure you've read before, and it's like, wow, this is really heavy, right? The context is that Jesus' disciples were asking a question about greatness, and they were asking this question again. It seemed to be a favorite topic of theirs. They were always interested who was at the top, who was going to be the GOAT, who was at the apex. Jesus dismantled their pretentious posturing. He invited a young child to stand in their midst, and Jesus always had time for children. When others pushed them away, he welcomed them. Now Jesus states to his disciples that if they want to be great, they must become like a child. And then in this passage that we just heard, he offers one of the greatest blessings followed by a seething and scathing curse. Perhaps some of the strongest language used by Jesus. But let's read that blessing together. Whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me. What greater blessing could there be than to welcome Jesus? And he's saying when you welcome a child, that is exactly what you are doing. Now, I grew up hearing about caste in India. I'm sure all of you have heard about the caste system there. And in particular, the lowest caste known as who? The untouchables, right? That group today is classified in India as Dalits. That word Dalit literally means broken and scattered. How would you like to be referred to as broken and scattered? In visiting India, this classification of people really did not cross my mind. All those times hearing about the untouchables, I just didn't even, that was not where my mind was at when I arrived in India for the first time and began to visit some of Child Impact's projects there. Little did I know that our team had walked right into a community of Dalits, of untouchables, this outcast group of individuals. Notice that it didn't slow us from touching them. 5 years ago, Child Impact launched a tailoring project in the Vizag slum. Life in the slum pushes individuals to the extremes of poverty. And some women end up making a choice to be involved in sex work simply to survive. And so this tailoring program was initiated in an effort to help them have another option in terms of the choices in front of them. We want these women to face a choice when it comes to these difficulties in their lives. Some of them may lose a spouse. They may have some kind of tragedy that's happened in their life, and we want them to have a career that they can fall on, that is a respectable one, that they can be proud of, that can provide for the needs of themselves and their family and their children. In America, we have a phrase, growing up on the wrong side of the tracks. And for these women in the Vizag slums, their address becomes a stigma. It becomes a discrimination point. So when they apply for a job and the address is identified, they have no chance to get that job. In fact, people won't even go there. They won't even touch them. And so the Vizag slum has this aura about it of negativity. And so it's so important in this location to have a beacon of hope, an oasis where these women can begin to find dignity in the work that they do, when they can be cared for, where they can be even loved. A baby is the most vulnerable in society. For survival, they need care, constant care. And so for this young girl that I got attached to in this very short time we spent together, I got to hold her quite a bit. And I look back and reflect and think, what will her future be? Will she have an opportunity for education? And I believe the answer to that question is yes. Because there's a presence right there in the slum, because this school is there, this preschool, she will have an education, she will have good nutrition, she will have teachers that care about her. And eventually she'll have a sponsor who will help her pursue her education. And so I'm excited that the answer about her future is a positive one, that she will be able to flourish because Child Impact is present in the Vizag slum. As I describe some of our projects in countries where extreme poverty exists, I often hear the question about this prostitution and whether women are choosing that lifestyle. A choice means that there are options. And I've found by visiting with these women that they really don't even know that they have another choice. For them, it's the only option. It's the only path that they know for survival. So these women want to be free of sexual exploitation. This is not something that they would choose for themselves. It's something they feel pushed into simply to survive. And so when they're given an opportunity, when finally they truly have a choice because somebody has stepped in to intervene, they will take hold of that and they will run with it. It was afterwards that our partner there in India shared with us that we were in a community of untouchables. And he said the fact that our team came in and held the children and hugged the women and were present with them and spent time with them, that it just had a tremendous boost to how they saw themselves. Well, this baby that I mentioned I got attached to, here's why I got attached. I mean, she's obviously very cute, but I had asked her mother if I could hold her. And other people came and tried to hold her, but she would stay clinging on to me. So my wife came and wanted to hold her, and she wouldn't go to my wife. And then her mom even came to get her back, and she wouldn't go to her mom. I'm like, this is amazing. And so it still really started to tug at my heart, and I began to wonder, really, what is her future going to be? Is there a plan for this girl? And I have to ask the question, doesn't matter what's happening halfway around the world. Should we care about that here in North America? Should we care about that here in Cleveland, Tennessee? I believe the answer to that question is yes. That should matter to us. Each one of us are a child of God. And so we should take that responsibility seriously. Now, our partner also said, I want you to meet a particular lady. And he said, this lady has been prostituting herself to pay for her son's Adventist education. I had never heard of such a thing in my life. I was shocked. So I actually went with my wife to visit her and her son in their home. And here we are in their home. And she showed me the financial report that she checks off every month, making those payments. She was concerned about switching careers, not because she didn't want to. She wanted to go into tailoring. She had signed up for the course, but she was concerned that there would not be enough money to pay for her son's Adventist education. So I let her know that you do not have to worry about that for another day. We will put your son in sponsorship with Child Impact. In fact, I went back and spoke with all the ladies and said that if any of you have children you want to place in the Adventist school, we will sponsor them to do that. So that is what we've been doing. It's a little more than our normal sponsorship cost, but we're making up that difference by something we call Operation Child Rescue. So this is a significant project. And in fact, we started this tailoring program in the slums about 5 years ago. There's 2 classes every year. There's always more applicants than spaces. But the ladies in the class when I was there, and now there's another class that has since started, but the ladies who registered for the class, the ones that I met, when they came, they shared with our partner there that there has been a 50% reduction in prostitution in that slum since Child Impact became involved. That's both a tailoring program and a preschool. Those in the preschool that want to go to the Adventist school nearby, join our sponsorship program, and they're able to do that. So my goal is to see that go to 0. But we feel really encouraged by that progress. In fact, right there on the streets of that slum, the Vizig slum, I met a young lady who did take that course of sponsorship and went to that local Adventist school. She went on to become a nurse. And today she did not have to become a prostitute to survive because she had an option that was placed in front of her. Now, it was a beautiful passage we read there about the blessing. If you greet a child, if you welcome a child, you welcome me, Jesus says. But let's move on to this troubling part of the passage that talks about the curse. Let's read that together. If anyone causes one of these little ones, those who believe in me, to stumble, it would be better for them to have a large millstone hung around their neck and to be drowned into the depths of the sea. Now, we know that a millstone was used to grind most likely wheat, but any kind of grain you could turn into flour with a millstone. And millstones varied in weight between 25 pounds and 300 pounds. So there was quite a variety of sizes. And yet in this passage, Jesus highlights that this millstone was of a certain type. What type is it? A large one. A large one. It's an adjective that could be translated large or heavy, and it is from the Greek word onokos. It is the only time this adjective is used. And it literally means this: turned by a donkey. In other words, this is a millstone that was so large that it was not one that a human being would turn. It was one that had to be hooked up to a beast of burden. These millstones were as large as 1,000 pounds. So the average man can lift between 135 and 175 pounds. The grand finale for the world's strongest man competition involves lifting what are called Atlas stones over a bar that is 4 feet high. The fifth and largest stone is 440 pounds. So the type of millstone that Jesus is describing here is more than twice the weight of the largest competition Atlas stone. Impossible for a single man to lift. With language more intense than when clearing the temple, Jesus unequivocally states that the punishment for a person who harms a child should be greater than an enormous millstone pulling them to the bottom of the sea. Now I'm going to share with you a couple of statistics that should evoke righteous indignation. Before the age of 18, 1 out of every 4 girls and 1 out of every 6 boys is sexually abused. Tragically, sympathizers toward the perpetrators of the abuse, who is that person, that abuser, is an expert at deception and grooming. They leave the children in harm's way. All the while, the abuse continues and the victims multiply. In fact, 70% of abusers have more than one victim, with 20% having between 20 and 40 victims. 1 in 5 children are solicited sexually while on the internet. This is the world that we live in today. Child Impact has been empowering impoverished children through education for 57 years. In fact, it's quite encouraging. We started as Asian Aid in Australia, and individuals that were once sponsored in our program are now leading our program in some of these countries. So those that are helped want to give back, and that is such a beautiful thing about sponsorship. It certainly is life transforming, and I'll be sharing some of those stories this afternoon. But 10 years ago, Child Impact launched what we call Operation Child Rescue, an initiative to fight human trafficking and protect the most vulnerable children around the world. When I joined about 3 years ago now, I was aware that Child Impact had this project called Operation Child Rescue that had a few projects, 3 projects in India fighting human trafficking. They were in the right country based on the statistics. But I begin to wonder, what is the Adventist Church doing in this space of fighting human trafficking? I had a hunch, and unfortunately that hunch was right. Relatively nothing. We did a survey of the entire globe saying, what projects has the Adventist Church initiated to make a difference? This is affecting 50 million individuals. Certainly we're involved in some way, right? But again, it's just a handful of projects that emerged. And so we began saying, how can we partner with these projects? And then we realized it was important to start our own projects. And so that is what we've done. And our initiatives fighting human trafficking directly have begun to multiply. And there's more requests than we can keep up with. But God has really been opening doors for us to serve in this space. Last year, we started a new project in the Amazon jungles of Colombia. The rescue center is translated into English as Weaving Dreams. In Colombia, 200,000 children are sexually abused each year. 35,000 of those are in commercial sex exploitation. Into this darkness, a rescue center has been established by our Child Impact Team and our partner, Delis. This project is funded by donors. The center opened in March of this year, and I'd like to share with you some remarkable ways that God is already using this beacon of light. Keep in mind, this is one of 20 projects that we now have started in the fight against human trafficking. The first miracle is that the local rebels, instead of creating a tense atmosphere of fear, danger, and intimidation, decided that it was their job to protect Delis, our partner there in the country. They, instead of being her difficulty and her challenge, said, "We will be your supporter." The newly elected head of police happens to be a Seventh-day Adventist. Inspired by Delis's work, he got serious about cracking down on abuse and immediately arrested 70 child abusers. That number has now risen to close to 100. Delis's bold initiative and desire to protect children, especially indigenous children who were so much in harm's way, captured the attention of government leaders, the police force, and she was asked to serve on advisory councils regionally and nationally. And this is remarkable to me because in my wildest dreams, I only imagined that could we perhaps shape an entire country in terms of child protection and child safety. The president of Colombia is aware of our project and has indicated an interest in visiting it. These are miracles that have just happened within a span of a few months. I want you to see the video from the grand opening of this particular rescue center there in Colombia.
Dios y Patria, la Policía Nacional en el Departamento del Guaviare se une a la Fundación Tejiendo Sueños para proteger a las niñas que son víctimas de abuso sexual en nuestro departamento.
Now, I'm not expecting all of you to understand the Spanish there, but I wanted you to see the show of support from the local police and the government there at the grand opening. It's just been remarkable to see how God has been opening doors and beginning to shape really even a policy for an entire country, which is just such a blessing and such a miracle. Let's read together the bolder words here of this next part of our passage. Be careful. Don't think that these little children are worth nothing. I want to unpack that part of the verse. I grew up going to a livestock auction in Walla Walla, Washington, on Highway 12. The city's so nice, they named it twice. It was something I always look forward to on Wednesdays, and we would go at least once a month to the auction. I was fascinated by the unusual vocal cadence known as the auctioneer's chant. In fact, I tried to practice to use that with this sermon, and I'm an epic failure at it. The bidding was rapid and included unique and subtle signals from buyers. And I had to be careful not to scratch my nose or my ear because I might be buying a pig or a cow or a sheep or a goat. Now, we raised goats, and they would sell for around $50. And today, the average auction price for a goat is $200. But it was shocking, absolutely shocking for me to hear that the average price of a human slave today is $90. And yet we are a people of prophecy, and we spend a lot of time in the book of Revelation. I want to share with you a verse that highlights that this will be a reality at the end of time. Revelation 18 has a menu of items that the merchants of the earth sell. Then it gets down to the very last item in Revelation 18, verse 13, and it says this: merchants of the earth sell the bodies and souls of men. This is yet one more evidence that we are living at the end of time. Be careful. Don't think these little children are worth nothing. I tell you that they have angels in heaven who are always with my Father in heaven. Now, this phrase translated, be careful, is from the Greek word harati. And it basically is an invitation by Jesus to his hearers to visualize with your mind. In other words, Jesus was asking his disciples to pull back the veil and to see the supernatural, to see what is happening that is beyond our normal human vision. He wanted us to see that the angels of children are in the very presence of God. Heaven is repeated twice to emphasize the location of these angels in proximity with God. The implication is that angels are making a report to God about how each child is being treated. This is a child abuse hotline directly to heaven. Friends, there is a superhighway of supernatural beings traveling at supersonic speed on super special missions. Despite evil forces seeking our demise, angels who excel in strength are constantly moving between heaven and earth on mission, directly commissioned from the throne room of God. These vulnerable children are of infinite value to God. This is further illustrated by Jesus as he continues with the parable of the one lost sheep, or the lost lamb in this context. If a man has 100 sheep and one of the sheep gets lost, will he leave the other 99 on the hill and go look for the lost sheep? I tell you the truth, if he finds it. Now this is interesting because in Luke 15, where this parable is repeated, it says when he finds it. But here it's a very different word that's chosen, if he finds it. Is it possible that that lost sheep is not found? Is it possible that it has been ravished by the wolves? He is happier about that one sheep than about the 99 who were never lost. In the same way, your Father in heaven does not want any of these children to be lost. God reduces the masses to one. With God, the one is never missed. He is always in pursuit of the one. I want to share a very brief video here of the perspective of a new Child Impact team member as he was confronted with child begging on the streets of Kigoma, Tanzania.
So we landed in Kigoma, Tanzania, in the town center. We were immediately approached by a group of children who were begging. We had an opportunity to interact with some of these kids, and it became clear that these kids were really in a dire situation, especially this young girl. We found out that her name was Angel and that she's 12 years old. I have my own children. The youngest is 13 years old, just 1 year older than Angel. And I immediately began thinking about my own family and what it would be like if this were one of my children out there on the streets. They mentioned that they sleep in the train station. I think from our perspective, as foreigners, as Americans, we didn't immediately understand what that meant until we made our way to the train station and saw that the train station is completely open air. There are also a tremendous amount of people around. And these kids go to sleep at the train station every night because they feel that they can sort of blend in. But it became so clear, whether it's exposure to the elements or, again, the tremendous amount of other people who are there, these kids are extremely vulnerable. This is not a safe place for them to be, sleeping in the open in a train station every night. So Angel, being the lone girl in this group of kids, the boys are protecting her. This group of boys, even as young as they are, understand how vulnerable she is. And the fact that it's now their responsibility as children to try and have to protect her from adults who might exploit her. This is just a shocking reality, something that we in our own country can barely imagine. Here in Kigoma, in the region of Kigoma, Child Impact works with and supports the Twing Memorial Schools. And as we met this group of kids and specifically thought about Angel, we knew that we had to do something. And so the first question that we asked was, can we find a place for her at the school? She shouldn't be out here on the streets. And as I thought about my own family and about what it would mean to me to know that if I weren't there, that there would be someone else to care for my children, I knew that for me personally, simply asking our local partner whether they could find her a place there wasn't enough, that I had to do something personally. And so at that moment, I agreed to sponsor Angel to get her to a safe place so that she's not out there on the streets, so that a group of children are not the ones that are having to protect her.
Let's read this together again. In the same way, your Father in heaven does not want any of these little children to be lost. That includes Angel, sleeping on the streets in Kigoma, Tanzania. Mary, a 14-year-old girl, being solicited for prostitution by truck drivers in Zambia, asking herself the question, can I be a sacrifice so that my younger siblings can survive? 4 young girls growing up in one of the largest brothels in the world in Dalit Dea, Bangladesh, destined to become prostitutes themselves. Uranus, a 15-year-old girl in an undisclosed country whose dad left the family and mother was killed by a suicide bomber. Her grandfather sells her body to make money. Uranus is desperate and hopeless. She wonders if life is worth living. In her words, she wishes a bright light would turn on in her life one day. What is God's desire? He does not want any of these little children to be lost. Child Impact is on a seeking mission. In each of the cases just shared, and thousands more, the light has switched on. There is hope for a brighter future, and that is thanks to our sponsors and our donors. A slave today might only cost $90, but you can provide a child with a future that is filled with hope and support rescue efforts for only $50 a month. You can turn the light on for a child. Conclude with this. Considered as one of the greatest movies of all time, Schindler's List has a poignant scene where Oskar Schindler is being commended for his self-sacrifice in saving 1,098 Jews from extermination. Rather than accept the accolades, he repeats, I could have done more. I could have done more. Friends, I want to do more now. I want to be all in. I'll be sharing some more things this afternoon, some more stories with you, even our own personal journey with adopting vulnerable children into our own family. I'll be sharing about that. But you have an opportunity to engage and to make a difference on behalf of a child. We have a couple of tables set up in the foyer, and you can select a child that your family can sponsor, and you can also be part of our rescue projects. And so I look forward to meeting you there. I'll be around all day, all afternoon, and hope that you can decide today that you would like to sponsor a child. If you'd like to be involved in some other way, you have our magazine. I really want to encourage you to read the story on page 6 about a deaf boy who is now level in India of a NASA scientist, sponsored through one of our schools. So you never know what the future holds for a child you sponsor. So super exciting that way. Let me give you the quiz answers, and then we'll have a prayer and let you head to your Sabbath school classes. Here we go. What is meant by a large stone, large millstone? Turned by a donkey. Who are the Dalits? All of the above. A little bit of a trick question there. All of the above. What is the main way that traffickers trick young girls in developing countries? The correct answer is C, offering fake job in another country. But I will unpack a lot more details about human trafficking both in the United States and internationally this afternoon. So please come by for that. This is going to open your eyes in terms of vulnerabilities both here and internationally. Final question, where is Child Impact's secret project? This question is not even phrased correctly because now we have 2 secret projects. And we will share with you about that this afternoon. So you can find out about that this afternoon. And here's our contact information. We're right on the campus of Southern Adventist University, next to the ABC. Next time you're there, come by and see us. God bless you. Let's have a word of prayer. Dear Lord, I want to thank you for this time we could share together and open your word as we've taken a look at this passage in Matthew 18 that indicates how precious children are to you. May they be to us as well. May we make a decision that we will do everything we can to protect children, to give them safety, and to give them a bright future. Thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.